Ever meet someone who's just good at, well, seemingly everything? You know, the creative type who also somehow crushes spreadsheets, maybe even runs a really cool side project.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I know the type.
But instead of everyone thinking, wow, what a multi-threat, they sometimes get tagged as, I don't know, not quite serious, bit of a joker.
Right. That exact label.
That's the puzzle we're tackling today. We want to sort of dig deep into why these really bright, multi-talented folks can end up with this label, and maybe how we can flip that perception.
It is a curious thing, isn't it? This almost automatic jump from having broad capabilities to being seen as lacking depth or, seriousness.
Yeah.
Why does having skills in lots of different areas sometimes lead to a shrug instead of, well, genuine respect? That's really the core question here, I think.
Okay, so to unpack this, let's start with a pretty fascinating idea, the trickster archetype.
Ah, Jungian psychology.
Okay, exactly. So in psychology, this figure is all about shaking things up, kind of bending the rules, and using humor sometimes to reveal deeper truths we might otherwise just ignore.
Mm-hmm. Disruptor.
Yeah, and think about people with talents all over the place. They often move between these different areas like art, tech, business, in ways you don't expect. They don't stay neatly in one box.
And that itself, that very unpredictability can feel, well, a bit jokey to others.
Precisely. It's interesting how this plays out socially.
It really is.
Yeah.
The trickster, just by being who they are, questions the status quo. They don't fit those neat categories we like.
Uh-huh.
So when you connect this to individuals with, many talents, their ability to just navigate different fields can actually be kind of unsettling to people who've focused really intensely on just one thing.
It makes them maybe question their own path.
It can, yeah.
Yeah.
Inadvertently makes them feel a bit uncomfortable, perhaps.
Right. And history is actually full of these boundary pushers. Like, think about Leonardo da Vinci or maybe Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, absolutely. Classic polymaths.
Incredible polymaths, involved in everything, art, science, politics, invention. They definitely weren't afraid to be unconventional.
And they often face their share of skepticism for them.
They did. Sideways glances, maybe social dismissal. It kind of fits that jester image, doesn't it?
It does. And this brings up a really important point about how we kind of, as a society, value different kinds of contributions.
Mm-hmm.
There's often this unspoken preference for specialization.
Totally. Deep knowledge in one thing.
Exactly. Someone who dedicates their life to becoming a master in one specific field is often seen as more credible, somehow, than someone with a wider range of skills, even if those skills are objectively just as impressive.
It's like depth automatically trumps breadth.
Almost, yeah. It's almost as if depth is automatically valued over breadth, rather than alongside it.
It reminds me of that Renaissance court jester analogy.
Ah, yes. Go on.
Well, they could use their wit to point out uncomfortable truths to the king, maybe things no one else dared to say.
Sure, they have that license.
But were they ever truly brought into the inner circle for, like, serious strategic advice? Probably not often.
That's a really powerful analogy, because the jester's words, even though they might have been wise, were often filtered through this lens of amusement, right?
Yeah, just entertainment.
Which prevented them from being fully integrated into the really serious discussions. And that perfectly mirrors the sort of paradoxical situation faced by a lot of multi-talented people today.
So, okay, we have this archetype, this historical pattern, but there's also the immediate social dynamic happening in, say, an office or a group.
Right.
When someone excels in many different areas, it can, even unintentionally, create this sense of unease in other people.
It's like they're holding up a mirror.
Exactly. And prompting that unspoken question, like, hang on, if they can do all that, what does that say about my own focus, my expertise?
This really touches on our natural tendency to compare ourselves, doesn't it?
It must do.
When someone's abilities deviate quite a bit from the norm, especially in a way that seems positive, it can trigger feelings of inadequacy or maybe even a sense of threat within the group.
A threat? Really?
Well, a perceived threat to the status quo, maybe. And the Joker label then becomes a way to sort of minimize that perceived threat, to bring that multi-talented person back down to a more comfortable level for the group.
Ah, okay. So it's a defense mechanism, a way of leveling the playing field, psychologically speaking.
Precisely, yeah. And it could even connect to this darker idea of scapegoating.
Scapegoating, how so?
Well, think about it. If a group is feeling anxious or insecure about something, anything, really, they might unconsciously focus that anxiety onto one person, often someone who seems a bit different. an outsider.
And the person who stands out because they have a diverse set of
They can
skills.
become an easy, maybe even unconscious target in those situations. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
It's fascinating how mimetic theory helps us understand this. You have this collective anxiety looking for a focal point. And by labeling the multi-talented person as a joker, the group can sort of collectively dismiss their achievements and reinforce the existing social order.
It's basically saying, oh, they're not serious, so their accomplishments don't really challenge our established structure.
Exactly. It neutralizes the challenge without having to confront it directly.
Okay, now let's think about how our own minds, just individually, can contribute to this. There's that common mental shortcut, right? That cognitive
The
bias.
jack of all trades, master of none idea.
That's the one. We tend to just automatically assume that if someone knows a bit about a lot of different things, their understanding in each of those areas must be shallow.
And this assumption is, well, it's deeply embedded in a lot of our traditional systems, isn't it? Education, workplaces. They've historically prized deep specialization.
Yeah, the expert in one narrow field.
The underlying idea being that true mastery only comes from intense focus on a single discipline.
Mhm.
So therefore, someone who divides their attention across multiple fields is often viewed with, well, skepticism.
Even though that might not be fair at all.
Right. And this bias, it can be a real barrier to recognizing the value of interdisciplinary thinking, which is actually so crucial now in our complex world.
So instead of seeing the potential, for new ideas and innovation that comes from combining different fields,
They get accused of lacking depth.
it's almost paradoxical, isn't it? Their breadth of knowledge should be seen as a huge strength.
It should. But instead, it often leads to them being dismissed or, yeah, even ridiculed sometimes.
What's really important to realize, though, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say it overlooks that skill of synthesis, right? Connecting the dots.
Exactly. That's the crucial skill. It overlooks the ability to connect seemingly unrelated ideas and draw really novel insights from different domains. Polymaths often excel at that kind of cross-domain thinking.
But the bias gets in the way.
But the ingrained bias towards specialization can just prevent this valuable ability from being recognized, let alone appreciated. This whole master of none thing, it really comes from an older sort of industrial model, Assembly lines needed specialization.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
But today, the ability to connect dots across different areas is becoming way more vital.
Okay, so we've looked at the archetype, the social stuff, the cognitive bias. We see why this Joker label sticks. But what can someone actually do if you find yourself getting this label because you have many talents?
Right. How do you manage it?
Yeah, how do you shift that perception? Maybe even use it somehow.
Okay, this is where it gets really practical. I think the key is first being aware of why it might be happening, those reasons we just discussed.
Understand the underlying dynamic.
Exactly. And then you can strategically work to counter those perceptions.
Hmm.
So one effective approach is being mindful of how you frame your humor, if you use it.
Okay.
If you make a witty observation that draws on your diverse knowledge, don't just leave it hanging there as a joke.
Don't just drop the mic.
Right. Followed it pretty quickly with a clear, concise explanation of the insight or the connection you were actually making.
Ah, so you connect the wit to the substance, like saying, no, really, there was a point to that.
Precisely. And building on that, it seems important to actively demonstrate depth,
Yeah.
even when you are being humorous or making those unexpected connections.
Show your work, basically.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Right after maybe a humorous remark or linking seemingly disparate ideas, be ready to quickly back it up, maybe with a relevant example or a quick case study, or even just a key data point.
So it shows your insights aren't just random flashes.
Exactly. It shows they're rooted in a real understanding of the subject matter, not just superficial associations.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What else? I imagine finding other people like you must help.
Oh, definitely.
Oh.
Another really helpful strategy is connecting with others who've had similar experiences, building a community, a tribe of fellow multi-talented people.
Because they just get it.
They get it. It can be so validating to connect with people who understand both the challenges and, crucially, the unique strengths that come with having diverse passions and skills.
I bet. It must counteract that feeling of being the odd one out.
Absolutely. It provides that crucial source of support and validation, helping to buffer against the negative effects of group bias. Plus, it creates opportunities for collaboration, for mutual learning among people who think across different fields.
Right, sparking new ideas together. And finally, it seems that maybe even just a little bit of subtle education could make a difference.
Yes, I think so. Just weaving in concise statements here and there that highlight the actual value of interdisciplinary thinking.
Like what? Give me an example.
Oh, something as simple as, interestingly, research actually indicates that cross-domain thinking can significantly boost innovation, or combining insights from X and Y often leads to breakthroughs.
Ah, okay, just planting little seeds.
Exactly. These brief, informative remarks can gently challenge that ingrained master of none assumption. They introduce the idea that, hey, there's real, measurable value in having a broader range of expertise. It's about subtly guiding people towards a more nuanced view.
Okay. So, to kind of wrap this up, the next time you encounter someone who gets called a joker because they juggle a lot of different talents, or maybe if you yourself have been on the receiving end of that label, it's really worth considering that this might actually reflect something deeper. That long-standing archetype, the person who isn't afraid to challenge the norm, who often plays a role in driving innovation.
It's not necessarily a put-down.
Right. It could actually be a sign that you're someone who's seeing connections and possibilities that others might be missing, maybe because they're too focused on their one lane.
That's a really powerful way to reframe it, I think. Instead of just automatically accepting the negative side of the Joker label, consider it as, a potential indicator of someone who thinks differently, someone operating beyond the traditional boundaries.
So, as you go about your day, maybe take a moment to think about this perspective. When you meet someone with that diverse skill set, or if you yourself are juggling multiple passions, perhaps that Joker label isn't something to automatically dismiss, either in others or yourself.
Food for thought.
Definitely. And maybe, just maybe, using a bit of that wit and humor as you navigate things, as you challenge the status quo, maybe that isn't such a bad strategy after all.